Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Guns Explained. I'm your host, Cameron Porter. We are here in a one-of-a-kind store called Smith & Edwards, which is actually soon to be two-of-a-kind. They are opening a second location here in Utah, down in Salt Lake. So if you live in Utah, you are among the blessed children. Smith & Edwards is a fantastic store. They have all sorts of crazy stuff you would never expect to find in a sporting goods store, and all of the stuff you would expect to find in a sporting goods store. So here we are going to be joined by Sheriff Terry Thompson of Weber County and Mike Voss, the sporting goods manager here at Smith & Edwards. They're going to be helping us talk about the parts of a firearm and the basic parts of a cartridge or a round of ammunition. So Sheriff and Mike, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for the invite.
So what are we gonna start with first?
We're going to talk a little bit about cartridges, their components, how they work, how they function in a firearm, some of the components of a firearm, and those kinds of things, both handguns, rifle, shotguns. And Mike agreed to join me here today, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's going to be fun.
Make it sound like you had a choice in the matter, Sheriff.
Not really. But if I make a mistake, I got my expert here to help me. So we're good.
Fantastic. So I guess my first question is, bullet and cartridge are the same thing, right?
Not exactly.
Not exactly.
Erroneously, people often refer to a cartridge as bullets. You'll hear them say, "So many bullets. Give me, how many bullets does that gun hold?" Really, the appropriate term is cartridge. What you'll commonly hear in kind of a day-to-day use is a round of ammunition. So I might ask you, "Hey, Cameron, how many rounds of ammunition you have? How many cartridges do you have?" So a round is kind of the more common term. But yeah, it's a cartridge. It's a round of ammunition. The bullet is just one component of that.
Gotcha, that makes a lot of sense. So what are the basic parts of a cartridge or a round of ammunition?
Well, let's talk about it. In fact, I have just a little one right here, and it's pretty pink, so we can tell it's not, this is a dummy round, right? This is not, this is inert. This won't fire.
Because real men don't shoot pink rounds of ammunition.
Well,
I don't know if we'll get away with
yeah. So in this cartridge, and this is a .40 caliber handgun cartridge, you can see that it has a case. It has a bullet that we talked about. It also has a centerfire primer in the base. Now, when you look at these different components, they all work together to make this cartridge function. So let's talk a little bit about how that works. In the base of this cartridge is a primer. And what that primer is it is a charge that shoots a flash. Within the cartridge case is powder. And the powder is what makes the pressure build in the cartridge. So the primer is there to ignite the powder. And the powder doesn't explode. We think it does because it burns like that. It just burns extremely rapidly. So we have a firing pin or a striker, which travels through the action of the firearm, strikes the primer. The primer flashes, ignites the powder. The powder burns extremely rapidly and builds up intense pressure. Now that round of ammunition, that cartridge, is encased in a chamber in that firearm. So within that chamber in that firearm, all that pressure is held in there so it can't escape, but only in one direction. The only way that pressure can go is out the barrel. So that's what forces your bullet or your projectile out the barrel. So that's how that cartridge works, that round of ammunition.
Okay.
Is that making sense?
That makes perfect sense. And actually, there's a very helpful diagram right here on the wall.
If we look at this diagram and walk through it again, we can see two different types of cartridges. This is a center fire primer like we were just discussing, case, powder, bullet, and then we look at a 22 rimfire, which is a little bit different. It does not have a center fire primer. It is actually a base, a circular base of that cartridge has the same type of primer component, which flashes, ignites the powder, forces the bullet out the barrel, forces the projectile out the barrel.
So this is just, so the primer is just a metal material that makes a spark when it's struck.
It has components in it that flash, and it flashes and ignites the powder.
Gotcha.
Powder burns extremely rapidly, builds up intense pressure, forces the projectile out the barrel.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned that gunpowder doesn't explode; it just lights on fire.
And burns very rapidly.
Burns very rapidly. What about black powder? How is that different?
Black powder burns a little bit slower, and it's much less clean, for example, and it's just a different type of powder, typically for a muzzle loader rifle, the old style, the mountain man kind of rifles, and it'll blow a cloud of smoke. You have to wait a few minutes for it to clear, so you can see what's going on.
So this is kind of the eco-friendly. This is the green.
This is smokeless powder is actually what it's called.
Okay, great. All right, and you can kind of see here on the diagram as well. So the firing pin strikes the primer.
Yes.
And then the primer ignites.
You can see the flash. You can see the primer igniting the powder, and then you can see how that intense pressure forces that projectile out the barrel. Yes.
Now, when we're talking about a shotgun shell, what are the differences between what we're seeing here? Because the shotgun shell looks very different.
Yeah, it's larger in caliber. It's instead of caliber, it's a gauge, and it's larger. But you still have the same primer. You still have a flash. It still ignites the powder. You just have BBs or shot. It's called different sizes of BBs, various sizes of shot. And so instead of one projectile, you have shot exiting that barrel.
I see. Okay, great. Mike, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
He really covered it great.
He did. He's like a
Good.
pro,
He's
isn't
pretty
he?
smart.
Yeah.
He's good.
We like having him around.
I think my BS meter just went off.
We were really lucky to have Sheriff Thompson and Mike here be able to go through that with us. They're very knowledgeable, and they've helped out a lot with understanding some of these basic gun terms. So we want to say, again, thank you so much to Smith & Edwards for letting us come and film in their area, and for letting Mike off the sales floor for a little while.
That was the best part of this.
And we also want to give a shout out to our supporters on Patreon. We're very grateful for their support, and you're helping make Guns Explained continue to be possible. So check us out next week, and we'll see you then.